Okay, and now we go to the second architect, an unusual one, but one who is very admired today by many people. I'm talking about Yona Friedman, and let's see what he's offering us. So Yona Friedman, he was born in Hungary, our neighbor. He was born in 1923, and he died. He lived for a long life, didn't he? 97 years. He died in 2020. That is last year, 2 years ago. So Yona Friedman, born on the 5th. In this here, I have something wrong in my information. So I don't even know any longer if today is the 5th or the 6th. It might be that today is the 5th. I could be wrong. I lost track of time. But anyway, he was born on the 5th of June, 1923, and died in February 2020 at 97. Was a Hungarian-born French architect, urban planner, and designer. He was influential in the late 50s, 1950s, and early 1960s, best known for his theory of mobile architecture. In other words, he was a dreamer. Here he is. If I like something very much in his work, is actually his own apartment in his very old age in Paris. And you are going to see plenty of pictures with it. A very romantic, almost mystical place. He lived to be 97 years old. So you can imagine, he, not too many people arrive at that age. Yona Friedman. A dreamer, yes, a dreamer. I don't think he studied architecture, but doesn't matter. If the spirit of architecture is within you, you have an irresistible urge to express it, doesn't matter what. And I think Le Corbusier was right. Architecture is not a profession. It is a state of mind. But this statement is rather, a little bit puzzling and mysterious. Yeah, that's what he said. It's not a profession. Architecture is not a profession. It's a state of mind. Here he is again, an interesting man, exuberant man, even if in old age, he enjoyed life and creativity in very unusual ways. Friedman described his approach as one that believes that ideas can be more important than objects themselves. An approach that goes back 2,500 years, but is often forgotten. Let's read again, because this is important. Ideas can be more important than objects themselves. An approach that goes back 2,500 years, but is often forgotten. This is what Yona Friedman said. And by the way of being important ideas about, by the way of ideas, is important, I think, to remember what Goethe, the great German poet, said. Exuberance is vital to ideas. Not exuberance, enthusiasm, I'm sorry. And it is true, without enthusiasm, you cannot truly push forward ideas. Enthusiasm is vital, is crucial, is the spine of ideatic creativity. You need enthusiasm. And this is why I continuously stress the importance of enthusiasm. Without enthusiasm, you cannot create. It's impossible. You need enthusiasm. Now, Goethe also added that in the realm of ideas, you need enthusiasm, but in the realm of reality, you need perseverance. So if you can combine enthusiasm with perseverance, with tenacity, you persevere, you can create beautiful things in reality. So ideas do not remain just ideas, but become what we call reality. So again, it's important to be enthusiastic, to let the heart speak, and to promote new ideas, to create new things. And if they come into being, fine. If they don't come into being, that could be fine too. The idea again is that Friedman might be right. Ideas can be more important than objects themselves. Some drawings by Yona Friedman, and I mean, this kind of childish drawings would leave someone, cautious, if not suspicious. But he was exploring ideas. Like for example, in the left upper corner, he says there are three preconditions for people's architecture. It must be easy to assemble for a layman. It has to be an assembly of inexpensive technical components and easy to disassemble and reassemble into a different pattern. Yeah, it's just an idea, but based on this idea, you could hopefully create something useful for life, for people in general. So look on the left, you can create a museum without a building. Can you believe this? But it's true, and he actually did it. It is the exhibits that make a museum. So he was actually Yona Friedman, in my opinion, is very relevant to our time, when I think we should be less. And if we are to manifest our creativity in architecture in sustainable ways, without the great expenditures, without abusing the resources of the earth, perhaps we should have more ideas and be flexible and explore various ways, instead of using huge concrete structures which eat up the oxygen, which eat up all kinds of resources. Perhaps we should be more lighthearted, live long lives like Yona Friedman, and enjoy ourselves on this earth. He had all kinds of visionary drawings, so to speak, a little bit in the, I don't know how to describe them, kind of a rationalistic utopism or utopianism. He imagined ways of, some kind of a futuristic urbanism, which is not necessarily, sustainable. But at the time when he made these sketches and drawings, there was no so much concern with what we call sustainability. He wanted to, he explored possibilities through drawing. He didn't need clients for this. And no one can stop you to make proposals in architecture if you don't have clients. It's very possible, and I keep telling the students and the young architects, make proposals yourselves, wherever you are, in a city, in a village. You don't have to be in Bucharest. You can be wherever you are, where you are from. You know that you could improve a bench in a park. You can improve the corner of a street. You can make a proposal for a different kind of building or a bridge or whatever. Make it. Make that proposal, sketch it, make a model if you want, make a preliminary, plan, go with it to the city hall, show it to the mayor, show it to some people, and you might be surprised. People love to see, self-initiative. Initiate things yourself. Don't expect people to come to you. You go towards them. In the same way, Yona Friedman acted. He promoted ideas. He didn't build much. He built a little bit, but he had eccentric ideas. You don't have to be so eccentric or radical. Ce sont les œuvres qui font le musée. It's the things make the museum and not the building. He thinks. Musée de la rue or de rue. It's a street museum, which he actually built. He built something in this sense. Other drawings by him. He did all kinds of, sketches showing his ideas about urbanism, about architecture. Like for example, on the left, the upper left corner, he says cities in the past were compact, many people in a small area. Then he says necessary for security defense. There were walls around the medieval cities, for example. Then what does he write? For efficient service networks, I guess that refers to a more modern kind of city, and for communication by meeting people. Anyway, he's exploring, thinking afresh about what a city is. His proposals are a little bit eccentric, but not that they are not feasible. They were feasible, and they were not built like this. He was not the only one, of course. There were other, like the metabolists explored relationships between biology and architecture, and very seriously. But humanity preferred to invest in wars than in, radical urbanism. Yona Friedman. But it was around that time, 50s, 60s, early 70s, a certain idealism in the world, and he was expressing that idealism and quest for, other things of communal life. He loved architecture. Now, I'm not sure he studied architecture. I think he didn't, but it's okay. He is very well known and appreciated, even if many of these schemes didn't come to life. But he did build a little bit. And again, I can't wait to arrive at his apartment, which in my opinion is beautiful, although in a very unconventional way. I don't think there was any other architect in the world who lived as he did in Paris. Yes, I'm trying to make you curious to see pictures of it, and you will very soon. In a way, his apartment is the opposite of what we look at here, an old apartment which he furnished in very interesting ways. So this is, it's called visionary architecture or visionary drawings. Usually we call visionary what we don't quite understand, or what is somehow, exotic or radical or whatever. Well, certain things were built kind of in this period, a little bit, like the Habitat 67 in Montreal by Moshe Sabdi. And there were other examples. There was an artist in him, an urban visionary, a poet, even some kind of, playful structuralist. A floor plan, a sketch. Actually, something like this is very similar in a way, in spirit, to what Toyo Ito did, or Kazuyo Sejima in our times. But he died 2 years ago, so he was almost our contemporary, and in a way he still is. Okay, maybe he drew too much and built too little, yes. But the idea of a museum that can be in the street, part of the street, to bring art to the street, I think is a valid idea, because in essence, it represents the unity between life and art. And we need that instead of an imposing, distant, aloof museum, which contains the artworks like in a, well-kept storage space. To bring the art to the street, to life, I think it's a noble aspiration. Now, of course, some practical matters might be difficult to solve, but the idea to unite art and the street, or art and life, is a noble one. Art should be part of life, and not distant from life, not destined only to an elite or the privileged, so on, should come to the street. This is what he proposed for Paris. You see here on the right, Centre Beaubourg by Renzo Piano and Richard Rogers, and the remarkable engineer Peter Rice. who died unfortunately young. A home for refugees. You know, he was thinking even of refugees. I don't know when he made this, page, this, filled with sketches, with drawings. But the social function of architecture is indeed important. I think it's more important to build for refugees than to build for a rich person. Much more important. Now, the Serpentine summer houses, 2016, look what he did. I guess this was, I don't know if it's connected to the Serpentine Gallery. The Serpentine summer houses in 2016, they're not really houses. They are, environmental artworks, or I don't know how to call them. So Yona Friedman summer house took the form of a modular structure that could be assembled and disassembled in different formations. The architect's statement: the proposed summer house builds upon my project La Ville Spatiale, the spatial city, begun in the late 50s. The manifesto for this project, published in 1959, was based on two pillars or principles. Firstly, a mobile architecture that could create an elevated city space and enable the growth of cities while restraining the use of land. Secondly, the use of modular structures to allow people to live in housing of their own design. Well, these are radical ideas, but they could be implemented. And perhaps we should continue the research. But these are not houses. They are more like, the ideas that have a certain form of physicality. But of course, no one could live in what he drew here, almost in space. It's like a drawing in space. Anyway, the man was a dreamer. But you see, even with dreams, you can build a career and you could become famous, very well known, and people come to you and take interviews with you and so on. If you bring something new into the world, something refreshing, something poetical, something maybe even crazy, but we need those things too in life. We cannot reduce life just to measurable things and the refrigerator and the pipes and Its Majesty, Gena in Romanian. There is more to life. And I think it's even enjoyable to be a little bit irresponsible. That's what I think. And again, maybe Zvi Hecker was right. Real art and real architecture cannot be totally legal. And I think the works of this interesting man is not entirely legal. I mean, it's because it's too playful, too, artistic, too fancy, too dreamy. The Museum of Simple Technology, which he built in Madras in India in 1987. I like even the name, the Museum of Simple Technology. You see a little drawing. Here it is. It was built. And, museums usually are tour de forces of one skill. Many star architects love to design museums because they could, emphasize the, stardom and their egocentrism and so on. But to make a modest museum, not too many people like. But Yona Friedman did, and of course, India was a good place for him to experiment these ideas. Interesting work, It was based really on the idea to bring art to the street, as we already know. And also interesting structures at the top of these small, modest cubicles where he did house, I guess, some art. So it's called, the Museum of Simple Technology. And it's essentially some kind of a grid with various configurations for the top part, the coiffures of the building in India. Yona Friedman. Now, it's probably during construction, but I don't mind at all the presence of these bricks here in this mound of bricks. It's fine. This should be left like this as a proof of how the building was built. Very modestly and very sustainably. and joyously, actually. And here they are, you invite people to draw on walls. Why not? A democratic museum, a democratic, context within which everybody could participate in some form. You have the architect, but you also have the passers-by, or the students, or the people in general of that place. It's fine. And now we arrive at his, in my opinion, his top work, his own apartment in Paris when he was very old. I don't know if he lived there. I don't know for how long he lived, but he probably died in this apartment at 97. And I find this apartment very, very moving, and I will try to explain why. Here he is, probably around 95. But look at the ambiance. Look at what's there. Look at the walls. This man played with the cut paper, created all those mythological figures on the walls. This is the apartment in Paris of a man who had a high degree of fame, and who was considered, like a visionary modernist. But look at the apartment. The apartment shows, something else. This is not the modernity we are accustomed to. This doesn't have white walls, does it? And look what's hanging from the ceiling. It's some kind of, Baroque or Rococo aesthetic, made with things that he probably found in flea markets, very inexpensive. He brought them home. He obviously loved to collect things. Look at his bedroom, look at the walls. There is an influence coming from India. We see some kind of mandalas there. It's a place. Look, and the structure that we looked at before is hanging from the ceiling, and it's. I find it inspiring, this place. Look at this. What modern architect would have something like this in his house? I don't know of any, actually, besides Yona Friedman. And this is not in a village in India. This is in Paris. So, an interesting man born in Hungary. Look what hangs from the ceiling. And again, what I see here is a thirst for the richness of life. This man loved art, loved objects, loved to collect, jewels, inexpensive, I'm sure. I'm sure he didn't have the gold or diamonds or whatever, things you find, for almost no money. Bring them home and hang them from the ceiling, and create an environment that is stimulative and, enhancing in a way the richness, and the poetry of life. He was an artist, of course. And I think we need artists. We need people to break the damned white cube, which obsesses us, really. Improvisation. We need improvisations. We need spontaneity and playfulness, like children. When I saw the pavilion, the Romanian pavilion, the Venice Biennial a few years ago, I think maybe 2016 or 2018, where, the architects drew Chotron with perfect 90 degrees angles, as if it was drawn with AutoCAD or with a T-square and the rectangle. I was immensely disappointed. For Chotron, we should have given some color chalk to a child and allow the child spontaneously and imperfectly to draw on the pavement, or in front of the entrance into the pavilion, a nice Chotron. Instead, we were so stiff and we drew it perfectly, but lifeless. We need improvisation, we need spontaneity, and we need playfulness. Play. There is playfulness here. There is a little bit of craziness too. He was a lonely man at 90, 95. I don't know. He died at 97. But look what he has there. And we cannot accuse him that he didn't have a creative life. He did. Recycling, again, this is immensely important. To recycle, throw nothing to the garbage, nothing, especially your own projects, dear students in architecture. I picked up from the garbage cans in your school hundreds of projects which were thrown to the garbage. Your own work was thrown to the garbage. Yes, I protested and I was told, well, we put them on the tables, on the corridors, students don't pick them up and we cannot keep them forever, so we throw them to the garbage. I tried to save a few hundreds. I wanted to do an exhibition called De la Gunoi, because it is unacceptable to throw to the garbage good paper, sometimes good drawings, you know, done with inks, colored pencils, whatever, manual drawings or expensive prints. This is not sustainability. It is not. Sustainability means to throw to the garbage as little as possible, ideally nothing, and recycle. There were I found them in the garbage can, great paper, expensive paper, which had a drawing on one side, but the other side could be used too. It's a shame that we throw to the garbage such things. And countries much richer than us don't do it. We shouldn't do it either. Anyway, this man indeed recycled everything. But there is, in my opinion, a hope in what he did. You know, there is in this, and he was a cultured man. You'll see also he had a rich library, and you know, there are references to mythology, and you know, you can create from anything and with anything. Don't throw to the garbage anything. Don't throw it. It's a sin, and that's why the world is on the brink of collapse, because we consume too much and we destroy too much and we discard too much. Recycle, recycle. Actually, I wouldn't ask the students to draw on paper any longer. You just need a projector and you make your project digitally. You project it on the wall. You don't have to buy paper. You don't have to spend unnecessarily. You know, and the sad thing is that what you spend for ends up in the garbage. Please refuse this. It's anti our time. Now, maybe you shouldn't go so far as Yona Friedman went, you know, to, you know, but when I look at the walls of his rooms, he has several rooms, I do see a very creative and joyous man, you know, and joyous not only towards human life, but also towards animals, you know, towards the past, towards plants, towards toys, towards found objects. Our world is very rich. We just need to look at it with fresh eyes. You know, I mean, for me, this is an example of the ambiance, the environment of a man who found pleasures in simple things, in small things. You know, he didn't need you know, Versailles. He didn't need palaces. He didn't need huge villas. Well, he had an approximately comfortable apartment in an old building in Paris. But look what he did inside. I find it very inspiring. It seems amateurish, but I think we need amateurs in the world. And I can tell you why. Because in the age of professionalism, so-called professionalism, the amateur is considered to be, I mean, the word amateur is used in a pejorative sense, you know, like someone who doesn't quite know what he or she does, you know, but we forget that the word amateur comes from amare in Latin, which means to love. So, you know, the activity, the so-called amateur activity, if it is genuinely so, it's born from love, L-O-V-E, jubire. And the professional very often doesn't work from love. The professional works for money. He's a mercenary. So we have to choose between the mercenary, the paid professional who might do the work perfectly, but soullessly, meaning without a soul, or an amateur who does the works out of love. Maybe he might do the works imperfectly, but full of life. This is very, very important. A professional very rarely does a work that is truly full of life, because life is also imperfect. And you know, it's actually very joyous for me to know that a very educated architect, a Chinese architect, you know, received the Pritzker Prize in architecture, actually, and his office is called Amateur Architecture. Wangshu, his office is called Amateur Architecture. So I encourage you, taking inspiration from Wang Shu, the great Chinese contemporary architect who did receive the Pritzker Prize and whose office is called Amateur Architecture, and also from Yona Friedman, who with simple means created an interior which you might not like, it depends on the taste, but is in a way a celebration of the joy of being on the earth, you know. And you know, there are all kinds of things going on here, and there is also the ornamental aspect. We neglect ornament, and that's a great loss, because you know, ornament brings what the spring brings to the trees, leaves and flowers, you know. So during the winter we have the trunks of the trees, but without the leaves and the flowers. They are rather stern. That's the structure. But the ornament shows up in the spring. I am asking you, the students in architecture, where is the ornament in your work? But there is ornament, beautiful ornament in your own school. The ornamental panels that you can see on your way towards the library, ornamente brâncovenești. Please take a look at them. Anyway, interesting man. Look at his bedroom. I love it. I mean, I love it, you know. It's yes, there is a level of madness here, of you know, obsessive, manic, you know, elements in his psychology, I think. But it's also, I think, an attempt to save as much as possible, not just his own life, but life in general, you know. And yeah, I'm amazed that he keeps them somehow in order, you know, which is for me, it would be totally impossible. He also, I think, he loved textiles, fabrics, you know, Oriental fabrics, most of them. Nice. Here he is, but also a lonely man, you know, 90, 92, 93, 95, 96, I don't know. But you see the drafting board there, and you know, the interior is not totally unfamiliar for someone, you know, concerned with architecture. A poet, a dreamer, a philosopher, a mystic. I like him. I like Yona Friedman. I think we need dreamers. I think we need people who are authentic to themselves and to the world, and they express themselves with sincerity. It's very important. Now, you don't have to imitate him, but your own way, do it your own way. Well, you see, maybe the New York Times came to his apartment and interviews him, being very old. There is a lot of stuff, I agree, even for someone like me. I also like to, you know, collect things, but not quite in the same way. But and you see, you know, there are reflections, you know, on mythology, on religion, even, you know, on and also on the conjunction of various you know, forms of spirituality or mythology or culture. if I compare this library with the library of Rem Koolhaas in his own house, we see two radically different people. You know, the library of Rem Koolhaas with all the books aligned based on the height and even color, maybe, you know, very graphic, but rather superficial. Here we see, yes, lots of books that are pushed there on the shelves. You know, they are not, they are a little bit, you know, you can tell the fragility of the structure. It's okay, it's the fragility of life itself. A mask, yes, a mask. Masks always inspired artists, and maybe architects should look at masks too. Actually, the theme of a mask in architecture is a very interesting one. Please consider it. Make a building and then mask it. Bring a mask in, like a second facade or a second elevation. So this man was born in Hungary. We look at his apartment in Paris, and he lived for 97 years. Yona Friedman. The Miami project, well, not very dissimilar from what we looked at before. It's not really a house, of course, but it's more like the dream of a house, or the, I don't know how to call it, the spiritual, perhaps. No, I don't find out the words. It's more like you know, the meta reality of a possible house. It's not a house, of course. No one can live in such a house. It's more like a environmental artwork, the sculpture rather. But for some reason, you know, he was able to you know, convince other people that this might be called houses. They don't convince me in that respect, but I think the apartment he had in Paris does. That's it. Let's wish him happy birthday, and that's it for today. Thank you for being here.